Number 6. Partido Revolucionario Mexicano, the political brotherhood of San Antonio prisons. Inside the complex ecosystem of Texas prisons, where gang lines are drawn in blood and survival is a daily ritual, one group stands apart for its unique origin, rigid ideology, and deep ties to Mexican heritage. This is the Partido Revolucionario Mexicano, known simply as the PRM. The PRM began not in the streets, but in the cells, formed inside the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. During the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Partido Revolucionario Mexicano was modeled after political movements in Mexico, particularly those that emphasized unity, nationalism, and identity. But make no mistake, this was no peaceful protest group. In the world of prison gangs, ideology is often a mask for control. The PRM may have adopted political language, but its purpose was survival and dominance. It quickly evolved into a structured organization made up of Mexican nationals and Mexican-American inmates, especially those who had ties to the border region. In San Antonio prisons, facilities like Dominguez State Jail, Bexar County Adult Detention Center, and nearby units like Garza West, the PRM gained influence by offering identity, protection, and power to Latino inmates. Unlike traditional prison gangs that are often built around American gang culture, the PRM took inspiration from Mexican revolutionary ideology. Members pledged loyalty not just to the gang, but to a cultural identity rooted in the homeland. That cultural pride, however, came with rules, structure, and violence. PRM's internal code emphasizes discipline, secrecy, and nationalism. It operates like a political cell, with ranks, meetings, and mandates that function as both orders and doctrine. Leadership is often based on knowledge, seniority, and reputation within the system. Disobedience is not tolerated. In the prisons of San Antonio, the PRM quickly became known as a silent power. They didn't flaunt their presence. They didn't graffiti the walls or chant slogans. But when they acted with precision. Members are known to engage in violence against rival gangs, particularly the Texas Mexican Mafia, Mexicanami, and Hermonos de Pistolos Latinos, HPL. These rivalries are deep, often stemming from competition over drug routes, influence, and ideology. While the PRM may claim political roots, their involvement in drug trafficking, extortion, and contraband smuggling is well documented by state and federal authorities. In San Antonio's prison system, the PRM has carved out its own territory, not necessarily in visible graffiti, but in alliances and power dynamics. They are often allied with Mexican cartels and operate as middlemen for narcotics that pass from the border through Texas and into the U.S. prison pipeline. But perhaps what makes the PRM so dangerous is its discipline. While other prison gangs fall apart under pressure, the PRM has remained tight-knit, avoiding internal fractures that have damaged groups like the Texas Syndicate or Aryan Circle. Their loyalty to one another and to the Mexican nation is fanatical. Even when members are released, they often continue working for the organization, operating as couriers, enforcers, or recruiters in places like San Antonio's West Side and South Side neighborhoods. In the eyes of law enforcement, the Partido Revolucionario Mexicano is more than a prison gang. It is a political weapon, one sharpened by ideology, strengthened by culture, and driven by profit. In San Antonio's prisons, their name may not be shouted, but it is known, and it is respected or feared. This is the Partido Revolucionario Mexicano, a revolution behind bars, and a brotherhood that never forgets its roots. Number 5. Brotherhood of Hate, the Texas Aryan Brotherhood in San Antonio prisons. Behind the steel bars and concrete walls of Texas prisons, race is more than identity. It's power, it's survival, it's war. In San Antonio's prison system, one name echoes in the corridors with violence and fear. The Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, also known as the ABT. Formed in the early 1980s, the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas emerged as a faction of white supremacist inmates, splintering off from the original Aryan Brotherhood that dominated California prisons. What began as a protective measure quickly evolved into a militarized criminal enterprise built on racial hatred and organized violence. Their motto? To protect the Brotherhood at all costs. In the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, the ABT rapidly grew into one of the most feared prison gangs in the state. And in San Antonio prisons, including facilities like the Dominguez State Jail and the Bexar County Adult Detention Center, their presence became deeply entrenched. The ABT is built like a military unit. Members are assigned ranks: soldiers, majors, generals. Orders flow from the top down, and obedience is non-negotiable. They call each other brothers, and their loyalty is sworn in blood. Recruitment into the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas isn't casual. Initiation often involves acts of extreme violence, stabbings, assaults, or even murder. These aren't just tests of loyalty. They're declarations of war. Once inside, a member is bound for life. There's only one way out: the grave. The ABT is fueled by white supremacist ideology. They believe in racial separation, dominance, and hate. In prison, this means targeting inmates of color, especially Black and Latino individuals. But this isn't just about ideology. It's about control. The ABT runs a lucrative criminal operation behind bars and beyond the prison walls. In San Antonio, they're linked to the trafficking of methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl, both inside and outside correctional facilities. Their influence extends to street-level drug dealers, halfway houses, and cartel connections along the border. Law enforcement considers the ABT a Tier 1 security threat group, meaning they're classified as one of the most dangerous and structured gangs in Texas. Their members operate with discipline, ruthlessness, and a long memory. In the 2000s and 2010s, federal agencies launched major crackdowns on the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. Dozens of members, including high-ranking generals, were convicted in sweeping RICO cases, charged with conspiracy, trafficking, murder, and organized crime. And yet, the gang survives. Why? Because the ABT is more than a gang. It's a code, a belief system, a violent racialized identity that appeals to young white inmates desperate for protection and belonging. In the chaotic, racially charged environment of prison life, gangs like the ABT offer structure, a chain of command, a purpose. For some white inmates in San Antonio's prison system, joining the Brotherhood isn't about hate. It's about not being alone, but that protection comes with a price. Once sworn in, a member must obey without question. Disobedience can mean death. And in San Antonio's overcrowded prisons, violence is never far away. The Aryan Brotherhood of Texas preaches loyalty, order, and white supremacy. But beneath the surface lies a culture of terror, manipulation, and bloodshed. In the shadows of San Antonio's prisons, the ABT remains a powerful force, watching, waiting, and ready to strike. This is the Brotherhood, and this is the war. Behind the walls. The E. Number 4. Aryan Circle. White Brotherhood behind bars in San Antonio. Inside the razor wire of Texas prisons, a secretive and violent network moves with purpose. In the heart of San Antonio's prison system, one name echoes with fear and authority: Aryan Circle. A white supremacist prison gang with deep roots in hate, crime, and brotherhood. This is the story of the Aryan Circle, one of Texas's most dangerous prison gangs. The Aryan Circle was born in 1985. It began inside the Texas Department of Criminal Justice when a split formed within the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. Some members wanted less rigid rules. Others craved more power, more action, more violence. The result? A new faction, just as white supremacist, just as brutal, but with its own identity. They called themselves the Aryan Circle. Their beliefs were built on a toxic mix of white nationalism, neo-Nazism, and racial segregation. But their goals were far from ideological. They were criminal. Aryan Circle quickly evolved into a violent prison gang involved in drug trafficking, extortion, murder for hire, and smuggling operations. In San Antonio and throughout South Texas, Aryan Circle established a strong presence inside correctional facilities. At places like Dominguez State Jail and Bexar County Adult Detention Center, members carried out hits, managed drug trades, and ran protection rackets, all from behind bars. Prison wasn't a limitation, it was a command center. Unlike many street gangs, Aryan Circle operates with a strict military-style structure. Members earn ranks: soldiers, lieutenants, captains. Orders are handed down and must be followed without question. Disloyalty is met with swift and often fatal consequences. Recruitment is selective. To join, a man must be white, show proof of loyalty, and be willing to spill blood, often through a blood-in initiation, where violence against others, often minorities, is a rite of passage. In San Antonio's prison system, the Aryan Circle thrives by maintaining ties to the outside world. Former inmates continue to work with active members, smuggling in drugs, phones, and weapons. Their drug of choice? Methamphetamine, cheap, addictive, and profitable. The gang enforces strict racial rules: no fraternization with people of color, no mixed-race relationships, and no tolerance for weakness. Their world is one of constant control and aggression. But even within this rigid structure, chaos brews. Over the years, the Aryan Circle has battled not just other gangs, but its own splinter groups, such as the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas and Aryan Nation. These conflicts have led to bloody wars behind bars, including multiple stabbings, riots, and lockdowns in Texas prisons. Federal authorities have long targeted Aryan Circle leadership. In 2021, several high-ranking members were indicted in a multi-state operation that exposed murder plots, organized drug routes, and interstate crime rings. But cutting off the head doesn't kill the body. Despite these crackdowns, the gang continues to operate inside San Antonio's prison system. Their decentralized model makes them harder to destroy. They operate in the shadows, dangerous, patient, and committed to their cause. The Aryan Circle is more than a gang. It is a hate-fueled brotherhood that turns prisons into battlegrounds and inmates into soldiers. And in San Antonio, their influence continues to infect the prison system with violence and fear. Number 3. Hermonos de Pistolos Latinos, Brotherhood Behind Bars in San Antonio. In the heart of Texas, inside the walls of high-security prisons and along the bustling streets of San Antonio, a brotherhood moves in silence. Deadly, organized, and fiercely loyal. They are the Hermonos de Pistolos Latinos, the Brothers of Latin Gunmen. Known simply as HPL, they are one of the most violent and rapidly growing Latino prison gangs in Texas. The origins of HPL trace back to the late 1980s in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. At a time when older prison gangs like the Texas Syndicate and the Texas Mexican Mafia ruled with an iron fist, a group of Latino inmates, mostly from the Rio Grande Valley, sought their own power base. These were men from small border towns, often overlooked by bigger gangs, but just as deadly. They formed a new alliance, one rooted in shared heritage, language, and survival. From the beginning, HPL was structured with military discipline. The gang adopted ranks: generals, captains, lieutenants, and a rigid code. Loyalty was not optional, betrayal was punished by death. Their primary mission: control the prison system and dominate the drug trade from within. And as their numbers grew, so did their power. By the early 2000s, HPL had expanded far beyond its valley roots. San Antonio became a key stronghold. The city's large Latino population and proximity to cartel trafficking routes made it ideal for growth. In prisons across Bexar County in South Texas, HPL soldiers moved strategically. They controlled dormitories, coordinated drug distribution, and enforced discipline with brutal precision. From Dominguez State Jail to the Bexar County Adult Detention Center, the gang's presence was felt by inmates and guards alike. Unlike some rival gangs, HPL operated with a business-like mentality. They weren't just about survival, they were about profit. The gang built powerful connections with Mexican drug cartels, particularly along the Tamaulipas corridor. They moved heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl from the border to cities like San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas. On the outside, former inmates turned street enforcers continued the flow, bringing prison tactics to the streets. Their operations were calculated, efficient, ruthless. Law enforcement took notice. In 2007 and again in the 2000s, federal task forces carried out major indictments targeting HPL. Dozens of members were arrested, many for conspiracy, trafficking, and violent offenses. But dismantling HPL proved harder than expected. Why? Because HPL isn't just a gang, it's a culture. For many young Latino men in and out of prison, HPL offers brotherhood, a sense of identity. In neighborhoods plagued by poverty, broken homes, and limited opportunity, the gang provides protection and purpose. Some see it as family, others see it as a death sentence. In San Antonio, the battle against HPL continues, both inside the prisons and on the streets. The gang has splintered at times, with factions like the HPL 45s and HPL 16s clashing over control. But even in division, the threat remains. Today, Hermonos de Pistolos Latinos is classified as a Tier 1 security threat group in Texas. Their influence spans multiple prisons and continues to shape the violent landscape of gang politics in the Lone Star State. They are not the biggest. They are not the oldest. But in San Antonio's prison system, HPL is one of the most feared, a brotherhood forged by violence and bound by blood. Number 2. Mexicanimi, the rise of the Texas Mexican Mafia in San Antonio. San Antonio, a city rich in history, tradition, and cultural pride. But in its darkest corners lies a violent underworld, one ruled for decades by a prison-born brotherhood with blood ties and an iron code. This is the story of the Texas Mexican Mafia, known on the streets and behind bars as Mexicanimi. The origins of Mexicanimi trace back to 1984 within the brutal walls of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. A group of Chicano inmates, hardened by violence and systemic oppression, came together to form an elite prison gang. Unlike the original Mexican Mafia of California, Mexicanimi wasn't a copycat. It was something new, fierce, structured, proudly Texan. From the beginning, Mexicanimi operated under a strict military-style hierarchy. Every member swore a blood oath. Every rule was enforced with deadly discipline. Loyalty wasn't a choice, it was a mandate. Members referred to themselves as carnales, brothers, and the gang as La M, Spanish for the M. But make no mistake, this was no street gang. Mexicanimi was a criminal enterprise, and its influence spread like wildfire. Inside prison, Mexicanimi quickly established dominance over drug trades, gambling, and protection rackets. They taxed other gangs for operating in their territory. They recruited aggressively, trained relentlessly, and enforced their code without hesitation. But the power didn't stay locked behind bars. As members were released or placed in halfway houses around San Antonio and South Texas, they brought La M's influence with them. Streets once controlled by neighborhood sets now answered to a new authority. And the Mexican Mafia transformed from a prison gang into an urban criminal syndicate. By the 1990s, San Antonio had become a central hub for Mexicanimi operations. The gang extended its grip into West Side neighborhoods, East Side trap houses, and even local businesses. Drug distribution became the primary source of income: heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. All funneled through a network of soldiers and prospects who paid tribute back to carnales in leadership. Anyone who refused to pay faced punishment, often lethal. Law enforcement recognized the threat. In 2001, a massive federal crackdown led to dozens of indictments across Texas, with San Antonio as a focal point. But despite arrests and convictions, Mexicanimi continued to thrive. Their structure was too disciplined, their loyalty too deep, their network too vast. Federal officials identified La M as a Tier 1 security threat group, placing them at the very top of the state's gang threat matrix. In some prison units, Mexicanimi holds near total control, dictating who lives, who eats, who survives. And yet, despite their fearsome reputation, secrecy remains one of their greatest strengths. Mexicanimi doesn't broadcast their existence like street gangs. They operate in shadows. Their communication is coded, their alliances silent. Even their tattoos, often just a single letter M or Aztec symbols, are meaningful only to those within the Brotherhood. But behind that secrecy lies a chilling reality. The gang has not only infiltrated streets and prisons, but has even touched politics, law enforcement, and border smuggling routes. Ties to Mexican drug cartels have made them richer, more violent, and more dangerous than ever. Still, to many young men in San Antonio's impoverished neighborhoods, Mexicanimi offers something else: power, identity, and protection. In a world that often ignores the poor and marginalized, La M presents itself as a family. But that family demands total allegiance and a lifetime of blood loyalty. From the cells of TDCJ to the barrios of San Antonio, the Texas Mexican Mafia has left a lasting mark. Their name evokes fear, their legacy is soaked in violence, and their story is far from over. Number 1. Inside Tango Blast, San Antonio's most notorious prison gang. San Antonio, a city known for its culture, history, and vibrant streets. But beneath the surface, a powerful underworld thrives, a network forged behind prison walls and carried into the city's neighborhoods. This is the story of Tango Blast, specifically the San Antonio clique, known as San Anto, also called the Orejones. Tango Blast began as a reaction. In the early 1990s, Hispanic inmates in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice felt trapped, not just by bars, but by a system of prison politics ruled by older, more rigid gangs like the Texas Syndicate and the Texas Mexican Mafia. These groups demanded loyalty, taxes, and violent commitment. Many young inmates, especially those from cities like Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, refused to fall in line. Out of this resistance, Tango Blast was born. Tango is slang for town, and each Tango Blast clique represents a Texas city. For San Antonio, that clique became known as San Anto. Over time, they also picked up the nickname Orejones, referencing the big-eared Spanish settlers once mocked in early Tejano culture. Today, it's a term reclaimed with pride and fear. Unlike older prison gangs, Tango Blast operates without a strict hierarchy. There's no constitution, no centralized leadership, no written code. But don't mistake this for weakness. In fact, it's the opposite. This loose structure makes them harder to track, harder to infiltrate, and harder to dismantle. Their motto? Don't check in, check your hometown. In prison, San Anto Tango members stand together. They share protection, contraband, and information. And when they're released, their influence spreads back into the streets of San Antonio. Law enforcement across Texas classifies San Anto Tango Blast as a Tier 1 threat, meaning they're one of the most dangerous and organized criminal groups in the state. Their reach extends from street corners to penitentiaries, with a deep presence in drug trafficking, assault, extortion, and even murder. But what makes Tango Blast unique is how it blends prison gang loyalty with street gang behavior. Members might not wear uniforms or flash gang signs like the Bloods or Crips. Instead, they represent through tattoos, city skylines, Alamo symbols, or the phrase San Anto inked in bold script. Many also sport the signature Orejonas ears or imagery from San Antonio Spurs culture, blending pride with intimidation. According to local gang investigators, San Anto Tango members often avoid open conflict unless provoked. But when violence does erupt, whether inside a unit or on the street, it can be explosive. In recent years, clashes with rival cliques, drug rip-offs, and retaliatory killings have traced back to the group's influence. They don't just operate in prisons. San Anto Tango Blast has been linked to stash houses, human smuggling routes along Rs-35, and drug corridors tied to Mexican cartels. They're not just surviving the system, they're profiting from it. But the story isn't just about violence, it's about identity. For some young men growing up in San Antonio's toughest neighborhoods, Tango Blast offers belonging in a world where the odds are stacked against them. A brotherhood forged in incarceration but lived out on the streets. In the world of prison gangs, San Anto Tango Blast doesn't follow the rules. That's exactly what makes them so dangerous and so enduring. This is more than a gang, it's a movement, one born in prison yards and spreading through the heart of Texas.